Good morning. Welcome to Tuesday morning's early morning intuitive guidance. I just got derailed because a message dropped in as I was starting to talk. So I'm Dr. Bonnie Nussbaum, here with some words of wisdom to start your day. And I chose something very specific for today. Good morning, Abigail. You're the first one here today. Welcome, welcome. Glad you're here. Happy Tuesday. As I was saying, I chose this purposefully. Good morning, Barb. Welcome. And I'm glad a bunch of you are starting to roll in here because I really want to share this information with as many of you as possible. Good morning, Joe Neal. I hope you find this one helpful too. Hello, CJ. Welcome, welcome. So, anywho, this is something I was learning recently. And good morning, Catherine. Welcome. And yesterday was an interesting day. That's how I will put it. It was an interesting day. It was an onslaught of people questioning things I'm doing, people having different opinions, people not having heard things that I said more than once. Good morning, Gwen. Glad you're here. Hello, Cindy. Welcome. And finally, I just sat back and I'm like, what is going on here? This is so bizarre as to be, it certainly pulled me up short, which I think was part of its design. And it also sent me looking for answers, which is why I think what I'm going to share today is particularly helpful. So let's lay some groundwork. First, let's do a little breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. This is perfect timing for the holidays, I believe. Good morning, Mel. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Settling down into right here, right now. In this moment, we can take some time just for us. We can take some time to look at things through different lenses. We have our old habitual ways of doing things that have streamlined our life to a certain extent, but may also have derailed our life to a certain extent. And one of these days, I'll share another part of this information that talks about the 6 primary motivations that people have. And you pretty much can dictate your outcome in life by the 2 main ones that you operate by which you operate. Don't dangle that participle. Anywho, this piece I'm doing today, I've chosen this one on purpose because it's going to help me address effectively yesterday's hot mess. So this comes from, let me turn to the cover, Tony Robbins' Date with Destiny, which I just did. That's Tony and his wife Sage. And this exercise is called The Power of Effective Blaming. Good morning, Nancy. Glad you're here. The power of effective blaming. How many of us, and that was part of what was happening with me yesterday, was a blame game of why don't they get it? Why are they not hearing what I have to say? Good morning, Peggy. Glad you're here. Welcome. And again, the 8 of you who are here right now, there's a reason you're here. This information on blaming is going to be useful to you. It's certainly useful to me. So let's see how useful it can be to you. So you might want to jot some notes. If not, you can always go back and watch the video again and jot notes the second time through. Maybe the first time through, you just soak up some information. How does this fit for me? What don't I like about this? How can I make this work as I'm moving, growing, improving myself, etc.? The power of effective blaming. So hold on to your butts. Here we go. So typically, when we're in a place of blaming someone, something, ourselves, etc., it has to do with being in pain. We're in pain from something that has occurred, right? Good morning, Janine. Welcome. Glad you're here. So let's take a look at what our responses to that pain that we're in can possibly be. So there are 3 main choices that we have. And yeah, there's lots of little potentialities under those, but 3 main categories of ways we can respond to something that has created pain in us. First, we can ignore and blame. So we can blame other people. You did this, and then I felt horrible, it's your fault. We can blame ourselves. I'm such an idiot. If I hadn't done X, Y, or Z, blah, blah. And we can blame the events themselves. If so-and-so hadn't gotten elected, if so-and-so hadn't gotten fired, if so-and-so hadn't done X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, I wouldn't be feeling crappy like this. Good morning, Diane. Welcome. Glad you're here. So we can blame others, blame ourselves, blame the circumstances. That's one whole category when we're in pain. We can do the blame game. Another one is we can change our life circumstances. The classic example to me would be quitting a job or leaving a marriage. Those would be two primary. We leave the scene. We change our life circumstances. We move to a different state. We cut off our family. We do something that changes our life circumstances in an attempt to alleviate that pain. Third thing is we can change our blueprint. And by blueprint, that's a word Tony Robbins uses often. By blueprint, he means three things. It's kind of a little triangle thing. Our physiology, so what's going on in our body, we control that, we can change that. So I'll just give you a couple of examples. If I'm in the dumps with depression, if I do, he's got various exercises that we do, but there's one in that a guy called Brian Bradley always has us do, where we lean forward a little bit, we put our feet like we're about to take off out of starting blocks, and we just move our arms. It drives your heart rate up, and it puts you in a different state. Good morning, Deb. Glad you're here. Welcome, welcome. It activates you. It gets you moving. When you're depressed, you're kind of lethargic oftentimes. If you're more of the agitated, depressed kind of person, that little activity, that little running thing, can also de-escalate you by removing some of the stress chemicals in your body, cortisol, adrenaline, etc., etc. That's why I think a lot of people actually do run. It helps them manage their mental state, their emotional and mental state. Makes sense to me. I'm not a person who's going to run unless you're chasing me. But nonetheless, changing your physiology, that's what he means by changing your blueprint. Physiology, focus. What are you focusing on? Oftentimes we're focusing on what we don't want instead of what we do want. And that was part of my deal with yesterday. I got caught in focusing on what wasn't working, what people weren't hearing me say, all the negative stuff. Need to shift my focus to what do I want? And it's been lurking in the background for quite some time. It needs to be brought to the front, and I need to activate it. I need to execute that thing. Third thing is language and meaning under this blueprint heading. Language and meaning. What story are you telling yourself about those circumstances? The story makes all the difference. And I've used this example a zillion times. Here it comes again. Hello, Beth. Glad you're here. Here it comes again. There are 11 of you listening to this. Please let this soak in because it can change the trajectory of your life. If I'm walking down the hall and Joe goes past me and I say, "Hi, Joe," and Joe keeps walking, that's the event. That's what I see. That's the activating event. Let's do our little ABCs of emotion, a la Albert Ellis. A, the activating event. I'm walking down the hall. I say hi to Joe as he passes me. He keeps going. B is beliefs. And most of us think we go to C, which is consequences, our emotional consequences, immediately, lightning fast. No. There's this B step in the middle that's oftentimes subconscious, and we oftentimes don't pay attention to it. So if C ends up being anger, Joe walks past me, he doesn't say hi, I feel angry. I'll guarantee you my B step is something along the lines, is belief. B is belief. Joe, that asshole, he didn't even say hi to me. What's wrong with him? What a snot, blah, blah, blah. I'm not talking to him anymore, and I'm angry. If Joe walks past, doesn't say hi to me, and I end up feeling my consequence, C, I end up feeling upset, scared. Joe, there's B. Joe, wow, is he mad at me? Did I do something wrong? What did I say last time I saw him? And I'm upset. Or C, wow, that's odd. Joe never walks past me and doesn't say, hi, I wonder what's on his mind today. I wonder if he's got something big going on. And B, I feel concern. I feel concerned for my friend Joe. I may contact him later and say, hey, you walked past me without saying hi, wondering what's up. So the A, the activating event, stays the same. What changes is B, what's the story, our beliefs, what story are we telling ourselves? And C, the outcome, the consequences, is vastly different depending on what we're telling ourselves. So what I do with clients, and myself sometimes, is say, how do I want to feel about this? What's the healthiest way to feel about this? Then I choose my belief accordingly. All right? So this particular exercise, the power of effective blaming, I want to read this little blurb to you. And I want you thinking about circumstances where you hold blame, where, it's my parents' fault because they did this. It's my ex's fault because he or she did that. It's my old boss's fault because they were an ineffective manager, blah, 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 all that stuff. We've all blamed someone in our life for things that have happened to us. But when you blame someone else, you make them responsible for what's going on in your life. If things had gone the way you wanted them to, would your life really have been better? Would you be the person you are today? Oftentimes we become who we are through the negative things that have happened to us, right? I certainly learned compassion for others having gone through abuse myself. Life is a balance. When you're in pain, it's because you're overvaluing the impact an event had on the negative side of your life and undervaluing the impact on the positive side of your life. The truth is that life doesn't happen to us. I've said this a bazillion times. It happens for us. So it's only fair to blame effectively. If you're going to blame someone, you need to blame them for the bad and the good that came as a result of the situation. Blame consciously instead of unconsciously. So, there was an exercise he had us practice. I'm not going to suggest that you do this. If you want to do this, go take his course, Date with Destiny. It's fabulous. But I want to walk you through the steps so you have an idea in your head. And if nothing else, do the process on paper. That would be an awesome beginning because that likely will be enough to maybe shift you on this. But here we go. Who are you going to blame? So let's say I pick my old boss who didn't believe that women could achieve, would promote men over women, blah, blah, blah. One of those guys, right? That's who I'm going to blame. What am I going to effectively blame him for? I'm going to blame him for being the negative side of this, being unfair, having a paradigm that women are less than, that didn't allow him to promote women effectively. Positive side, I'm going to blame him for setting me up to understand that the world isn't fair, doesn't treat men and women equally. Still, to this day, women make less money than men. Dollar for dollar. So I'm going to blame him for opening my eyes to that kind of discrimination. I'm going to blame him for putting me in the position of being unwilling to accept that. So for myself, it was choosing to go on for higher education into a field, psychology, where their insurance companies pay you the same. Doesn't matter if you're a male therapist or a female therapist, they pay you the same, right? So that would be the positive side of what came out of that inequitable situation. Good morning, Morgan. You might want to go back and watch this whole one because this is really good stuff. How will my life be transformed as a result of this effective blaming? I'm going to see him through different lenses. I'm going to see the positive that this did for me. Him being unfair to women set me up to manage my own life differently, to not lament the unfairness of it, but to address the unfairness of it. I'm going to choose a career where that doesn't happen that way, etc., etc. So in the program, in the Date with Destiny, we were tasked with calling someone and effectively blaming them. This is what you just wrote? Fabulous. I love it. I love it. I love it. Again, there are no accidents. This stuff unfolds in divine right timing and divine right order. I am sharing this today ostensibly because of what happened yesterday that put me in the position of feeling like I am losing my mind here. Am I talking to the wall? Didn't I just say that? How am I not being heard? Is this gaslighting? What the hell is going on here? I was worked up. But then working through this process, being able to see there's gifts in here, including a huge gift for me of looking at what's unhealed. There's that old childhood thing of I'm saying what's going on, nobody's listening. Nobody's listening. Or they're blaming me for what's happening. So the assignment was to call someone and effectively blame them. So we said to that person, I need to talk to you about some things. Here's the situation. Here's the negatives that came out of that situation. Here's the positives that came out of that situation, etc., etc. The three things that we had to write down later were how that person reacted, what the impact was, and how did it affect me, right? So that part I'm not suggesting you necessarily do because you haven't gone through the course, but I think thinking it through in your mind can be helpful. Writing this out. I blame so-and-so for X. I blame the negative fallout for me has been Y, Z, A, B, C. The positive fallout for me has been, and for most of us, that's going to be the piece that we never, ever have looked at. We never have looked at. So let's say upbringing in your family. I'll pick one from a friend of mine. Farm family, lots of kids, and the girls were perceived as having less value than the boys. The words on the barn were Joe Blow and Sons. I had an uncle who broke that pattern and put up Bob Nussbaum and Daughters on his barn. I thought that was kind of cool. So that the whole theme there was women are to take care of men. That's what we're here for. We're here to take care of men. We cook for them, we clean for them, we sit in the background, blah, blah, blah. For her to do this process, she could, at this point, probably deal with her mother. And the theme would be here's the pattern. It was all about Dad and the boys. It was nothing about the girls. Girls played backup singer at best. And how that harmed me was, and then list the ways that it harmed you. How that helped me was, how did this set me up to become the person I am today? Again, remember, life is happening for you, not to you. So when you can take a look at what were the unexpected positive things that came out of this seemingly crappy situation, it begins to create some balance in your life. It may even begin to build some appreciation. Tony himself talks about using this process with his mother, who went through 4 different husbands, repeated divorces because she didn't, as someone else would say, her picker was broke. So she would pick guys that didn't step up and be, yes, find the fruits, absolutely, be a leading force in the family. She would still end up carrying all the load. But what Tony discerned, having lived through forefathers, tumultuous lifestyle, lack of money, no food, blah, 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 was that it made him strong. It made him unwilling to experience those things in his life as an adult. It made him hustle, etc., etc. So the good that came out of this crappy situation were those things. He also talks about, and many of us, myself included, want to do well, life shouldn't be that way. Life should be, but there's a pattern. Look at the pattern. When times are good, it creates weak people. Weak people create bad times. Bad times create strong people. Strong people, you see the gist? Around we go. In those times, we can also make choices because we can observe people from those previous times. So let me just pick something. If I'm in one of those times that's creating weak people, life is easy, everybody has enough, there's no need to hustle, blah, 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 and it's creating a group of weak people, we can make a choice. We can look back. We can look back in history repeatedly, where times were difficult and it created strong people. So even in weak times, we could choose, good times, it's good times, we could choose to still be a hustler, to still work hard, to still think things through deeply. Our circumstances may not set us up to do that because it's easy times, but we in our mind, we've got this cortex, right? Sure, we've got the basal brain that's meant for survival, but we have this cortex. Let's use it. Let's use it to our advantage. Who do you want to be? Who do you want to be? Do you want to be the person who sits around whining and blaming everybody? Good morning, Carolyn. Glad you are here. Welcome. Do you want to be the person who leaves all circumstances that are bad? And I'm not saying don't leave. If something is shitty and it's not going to change, sometimes your only option is to head out. But it can also be changing your blueprint. How do I look at this? What story am I telling myself about this? What is the good and the bad of this thing? Not just the bad, but what is the good of this thing? What am I getting out of it? Because oftentimes we stay in circumstances that aren't so great because it is doing something for us. I'll make up a bunch of them. I stay with my spouse who is a very wealthy, status-driven person. I get benefits out of that, right? Or I stay in a job that's miserable, but I get paid really well. There's benefits out of that, right? Or I stay in a marriage where my spouse is not doing a heck of a lot to add to the family ambiance, but it allows me to then complain about him or her as being the one why we're in such a crappy spot instead of really looking at myself. What am I culpable for? What is my responsibility? Again, borrowing from AA, cleaning in front of my own door first instead of looking at everybody else. Oh, that one's messy and that one's full of ice and that one, eyeballing everybody else's doorstep. Clean in front of your own doorstep first. So, gist for today is effective blaming can be helpful to us in terms of bringing online what has this crappy circumstance done for me instead of to me. What are the benefits that I have reaped from this awful situation? Attend to those. Pay attention to those. A, because those might be why you're still hanging in there with it, and B, because it affords you the opportunity to move yourself out of a stuck point of blame and into movement again. So, hopefully some of this was helpful. I'd love to have you, there's 11 of you on here live right now. I'd love to have you post what grabbed you the most. What made you go, oh? What made you think, aha? What made you think of a certain circumstance that now you have something different you can do? Hello, Cheryl. We're just about done, but I'll post it immediately. Spend some time with this. If you spend 10 minutes with this material, I think you're going to find that it's life-altering. Have an awesome Tuesday. We'll see you again tomorrow. Remember, you're capable of far more than you think you are. Bye-bye.